Greetings, children of Assyrian. In this video, I'll be going over the history of the Eldar, from their creation by the Old Ones to the fall of their empire. Due to the limited, and often contradictory information on this era of Warhammer 40,000's prehistory, I have taken the liberty of filling the gaps with speculation and interpretation of what little information we have available. Due to this, the information I provide may contradict future lore updates, in the unlikely event that Games Workshop decides to enlighten us on this period of galactic history. The Eldar myth cycle is a collection of myths and legends that bind the Eldar people together, forms their understanding of the ancient past, and informs their decisions to this day. The Eldar believe that they were created by the gods Isha and Kurnos. The first of the Eldar to be created were the twin brothers Eldanesh and Ulthanesh. At this time, no boundary between the warp and real space existed, and the gods lived among the Eldar, teaching and leading them in a time of unparalleled peace and prosperity. Upon the creation of the Eldar, each of the gods gave the Eldar a gift so that their newborn children might prosper. Assyrian, the Phoenix King, chief of the Eldar gods, gave the Eldar wisdom, that they might know themselves. Isha, mother of the Eldar, gave them love, that they might know one another. Val, god of smiths, gave the Eldar artifice, so they might make their dreams reality. Lilith, the maiden, gave the Eldar joy, so they would know happiness. Kurnos, lord of the hunt, gave the Eldar desire, so that they might prosper. Morai Heg, the crone, gave the Eldar foresight, so they might know their place in the galaxy. Lastly, Cain, god of war, gave the Eldar anger, so they might defend all the gifts that they had been given. With these gifts the Eldar prospered, led by the greatest mortal hero of the Eldar, Eldanesh, first of their kind. This peace would not last, as Lilith, goddess of dreams, foresaw the death of Cain at the hands of the Eldar. She told Cain, who was enraged, resolving to slay all the Eldar, rather than let them destroy him. The slaughter was of such great proportions that Isha petitioned Assyrian, who divided the Materium and the Immaterium, separating the gods from the Eldar forever. While Isha and Kurnos were grateful that their children were spared, they loved them deeply, and the separation proved to be more than they could bear. They approached Val with their woes, and he, being the kindly sort, agreed to help them. He forged the Soul Stones, gem-like crystals infused with psychic energy, through which the Eldar could once more commune with their gods. With these stones, Isha and Kurnos continued to mentor their children in secrecy. One day they were caught communicating with the Eldar by Cain, who told Assyrian of their disobedience. Although Assyrian was sympathetic to the plight of Isha and Kurnos, they had directly disobeyed one of his decrees, so he reluctantly handed them over to Cain to do with as he pleased. Val thought that Assyrian had gone too far, and petitioned for Isha and Kurnos' release. He came to an agreement with Cain. In a year's time, Cain would release Isha and Kurnos in exchange for 100 divinely crafted swords. These blades were immensely valuable, for a single warrior armed with a blade forged by Val could stand against 1,000 warriors. Val immediately set to work, toiling day and night, but as the deadline approached, Val had only fashioned 99 blades, rendering the bargain void. In desperation, he took a mortal blade and hid it among the 99, hoping Cain would not notice. Cain was so pleased with the blades that he released Isha and Kurnos immediately, only finding the forgery after they had long escaped his grasp. Cain roared with anger, calling Val a cheat, a liar, and a thief. He immediately set off to track Val down and make him pay. The conflicts that followed lasted an eternity. Gods and mortals took sides, and great deeds of heroism and craven evil were performed by both factions. Assyrian himself never took a side, watching the carnage impassively, slowly coming to regret his sentencing of Isha and Kurnos. As the war raged, Val forged the last of the swords he promised to Cain, the greatest of them all. He named it Inaris, meaning the light of the dawn. With it he went to battle Cain. Their battle was hard fought, but even with Inaris, Cain proved to be the stronger warrior. He cast Val down and bound him to his anvil. However, the Falcon, consort of Assyrian, took the sword Inaris and delivered it to Eldanesh, greatest of the mortal heroes. With it, Eldanesh went out to confront Cain, hoping to calm him and bring an end to the war. But Cain would not heed Eldanesh, for he was blinded by rage, attacking the Eldar hero. Eldanesh fought well, but he too was defeated by Cain. In his anger, Cain slew Eldanesh, destroying both his body and soul. Thus Eldanesh, first of the Eldar to be born, was also the first to truly die. Assyrian had seen enough of the slaughter, proclaiming the war over. He cursed Cain for his murderous act, causing his right hand to eternally drip with blood, the mark of a murderer. From then on he was known as Kala Mencha Cain, meaning the bloody-handed one. The Eldar were created by the Old Ones to fight the war in heaven, an ancient and devastating conflict that lasted for thousands of years. The war was started by a race called the Necrontyr. The Necrontyr were a race born under the intense light of a hateful sun. Their lives were painful and short, due to the immense radiation of the star their planet orbited. As the centuries passed, the Necrontyr established a civilization. Generation after generation died in agony as their race attempted to escape the hellish world they were born on, and free themselves from the star's wicked grasp. They eventually became a void-capable species, finally free of the intense radiation poisoning of their world. Or so they thought. To the Necrons' horror, escaping the planet did not protect them from the curse of excruciating and short lives. For the millennia they had spent under that star had rewritten their very DNA. The Necrontyr petitioned the Old Ones to aid them, to cure them of their curse and grant them eternal life, a request the Old Ones refused. The Necrontyr were embittered, and in jealousy declared war on the Old Ones, seeking to take their mastery over death for themselves. The Necrontyr grossly overestimated their own military capability, and were swiftly pushed to the brink of defeat. The Necrontyr turned on one another, fighting over what little territory remained in their grasp, till a Necrontyr known as the Silent King united the warring factions, taking control of the entire race. It was then that the Silent King found the Catan, immensely powerful ancient beings without physical forms, that fed upon the stars themselves. The Silent King had bodies of living metal forged for the Catan, granting them physical forms. These ancient beings told the Necrontyr that they too had once warred with the Old Ones, and lost, being banished from their physical bodies as punishment for their defiance. They offered to aid the Necrontyr, to grant them immortality and victory over the Old Ones, in exchange for their souls. The Silent King accepted this bargain, and the process known as biotransference began. All the Necrontyr were taken to great bioforges, where their souls would be ripped from their bodies, and they were granted new bodies of living metal. Every promise made by the Catan was fulfilled, but at a cost the Silent King was unaware of. All but the most strong-willed of the Necrontyr lost almost all their sentience, becoming little more than mindless automatons. The Catan feasted on the souls of the Necrontyr, gaining unimaginable power. Thus did the race of the Necrontyr die. From the ashes of their former bodies rose the ascended Necron race. This new army of immortal machines renewed their war against the Old Ones. Led by the greatly empowered Catan, the Necrons began to take control of the galaxy. For centuries, the Necrons terrorized the galaxy, exterminating every lifeform they came across, feeding the souls of the dead to their new gods. The Old Ones themselves were almost eradicated. The few that remained fled into the webway. In desperation, the Old Ones began creating new races, designed for war against the Necrons. The greatest of these were the newborn Eldar, whose psychic powers proved devastating against the mechanical legions of the Necron. The Eldar were a warrior race without compare. Their intense psychic power allowed them to reincarnate after death with all the memories of their past lives. This allowed the Eldar to become masters at the arts of war. These new races began to turn the tide against the Necrons. Their psychic supremacy, as well as access to the webway, gave them an advantage, despite the Necrons' mastery of technology. The gods of the Eldar themselves strode across the battlefield, battling the Catan and their servants. As the war raged, the Eldar god of trickery, Kegarath, began sowing seeds of dissent and betrayal among the Catan, who quickly began to turn on each other. As the Catan fought each other, the Silent King saw an opportunity to right the mistake he had made in making a bargain with the Catan. He assumed control of the legions of undead machines and turned them against their former masters, shattering the Catan and binding their essence to his will. With the Catan subjugated and the galaxy in flames, the Silent King ordered the Necrons to enter great underground tombs. The Eldar had proven to be too great a foe to defeat, but the Silent King believed that the Eldar's dominance would not last forever. Thus began the Great Sleep. All the Necrons in the galaxy went into tomb worlds, sealed themselves in, and entered stasis. There they would wait until the Eldar Empire fell. The Silent King would not join his kin in their sleep, choosing to exile himself from them. He would spend a near eternity searching for a way to atone for the sin of biotransference that he forced upon his people. After the War in Heaven, the Old Ones disappeared. It is unknown whether they all died out, fled the galaxy, or something else entirely. With the Catan fragmented and the Necrons sleeping, this left the races the Old Ones had created alone in a galaxy that had been almost entirely cleansed of all life. Short, brutal wars occurred between these races. Wars the Eldar won. This left them the sole inheritors of the galaxy. The Eldar built a vast empire over the next several millennia, becoming the wardens of the galaxy as the Old Ones once were. They aided the new alien races that rose up, often inconspicuously. If any threats appeared, such as species too violent and unreasonable to coexist with the rest of the galaxy, the Eldar would swiftly take action, eradicating the entire species. The Eldar watched over the galaxy, and the galaxy entered a new era of peace, all under the Eldar's watchful eye. This would come to an end as a primitive race of primates known as humans began to expand from their homeworld, then known as Earth. They would build a vast empire within their region of space. While they were primitive and crude, they displayed many qualities the Eldar would come to respect, seeing humanity as not so unlike themselves, albeit simple-minded. For centuries, the Eldar and humanity would coexist as friends and neighbors, although it should be noted that humanity was never truly any threat to the Eldar. However, humanity would make a terrible mistake. They created thinking machines, known as Men of Iron. Much like the abominable Necrons, these machines eventually rebelled, waging a war of genocide against all organic life that reached a galactic scale. The Eldar intervened, along with many other alien races, defeating the Men of Iron, but at great cost. At the demands of the other alien races, the Eldar reluctantly punished the humans for their hubris, annexing much of their territory and returning many of them to Earth. As countless millennia passed, with the Eldar in complete dominion over the galaxy, the Eldar became unsatisfied with the lives of leisure they lived. Due to their intense psychic nature, the Eldar are prone to extremes of emotion. As they indulged in the many joys of life, the things they once saw as beautiful and thrilling became drab and boring as they passed through the endless cycles of life and death. There was nothing greater to strive for, no battles left to fight. And so, in this state of desperation, the Eldar abandoned their duties and gods, turning to the pursuit of excess and hedonism. This started with pleasure cults, outcasts of society, looked down upon by the rest of their kin as nothing more than depraved animals. But the cults began to gain influence, corrupting those in positions of authority. For it was not enough that they engaged in their depraved acts in secret. They wished to bring their excessive displays into the light, corrupting the entire society with their degenerate acts of hedonism. Soon these cults became commonplace. Those who abstained from the debauchery were seen as puritanical zealots, clinging to old ways that were irrelevant in their new age of pleasure. The first to speak out against this depravity were the Harlequins, servants of the trickster god Kegarat. They performed theatrical displays that warned against the hedonism that was consuming their society. The Harlequins became targets for violence, many murdered for the warnings they gave. They fled into the webway, waiting for a time when their message of doom would be heeded. Soon after, many Eldar fled to the furthest reaches of their empire. Disgusted by the depravity that the Eldar Empire had fallen to, they forsook all technology, believing a life spent in toil would free them from the hedonistic urges that had corrupted their kin. Massive void ships known as craftworlds were home to many Eldar. These void-faring vessels would spend centuries separated from the Eldar Empire, traveling between systems, exploring the galaxy, and trading with others. This isolation allowed the craftworld to see the corruption of their kin much more clearly, as they spent centuries in deep space, far from the light of stars. What they found when they would return disgusted them, and they took any sane Eldar left on these worlds and fled to the galactic south, to the territories that had once belonged to the human empire. The sickening rituals of the pleasure cults created immense ripplings in the warp, storms larger than had ever been seen before. Something stirred in the depths of that realm, feeding on the displays of excess and hedonism, until one day, with a psychic scream, the once great empire of the Eldar met its end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button. I will be covering Eldar history from the fall to the 42nd millennium in a future video. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if that interests you. Thank you and goodbye.